This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to downrigger at montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Thanks a lot, Manny. And as Manny just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast, and we are covering it this week. Man, last few weeks we have been talking all about finding the right boat for you. And you've probably heard me mention several times in those different podcasts, well, you got to make sure you leave room for all those tech things and all that. And we decided to do one podcast just about finding the right tech for your boat. Now, this is whether you have a new boat or not, or maybe you just now want to upgrade into all the cool stuff that's out there. Well, the Wizard of the Waterways is back, and Matt Cowen is his name, from Mon-Dak Marine, and he's going to talk to you about tech. Now, last year we did this. It was very popular. A lot of you really enjoyed this because you got a lot of great information, got a lot of questions answered that you felt like, oh, I don't want to ask that because I'll look dumb, but I don't know what that is. And number one, don't ever feel that way. Anyway, Matt Cowen from Mon-Dak Marine is with me. Matt, welcome again to the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me on again. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully we can answer a few questions.
Yeah. Well, I've got quite a few for you here. So, Matt, you did such a great job last time when we were doing this last year, plus when we did the Finding the Right Boat for You podcast. I thought it'd be great to have you on, as I just said, talking about all the different tech that's out there and available. It changes so much year to year. Mm-hmm. If we tried to cover all the tech stuff that a person could try to fit on a boat, this podcast would probably be 8 hours long, I would imagine.
Oh, man, there's a lot that you can dive into, and it can be a little overwhelming from time to time for sure.
But in reality, no one's going to put everything that they could ever get on a boat. So let's start with the basics. For a boater that loves to fish, wants to make sure they're safe and not get lost or any of that, what are the main pieces of tech that are great for that? And why?
Well, I think what we need to realize right out of the gate is everything that we're going to talk about putting on a boat for fishing or for fun or for safety, they're just all tools. And it's up to us to redefine them and learn them and be efficient with them. And you can get overwhelmed. And just because you might have the latest, greatest sonar or GPS or all the fancy fish finders, that it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to catch more fish. So, I think that it's okay to not have everything, but it's also okay to be excited to learn new things. And the way the industry is going with, specifically the live sonar information, it can be super exciting, but just know that they're just all tools in the boat that you can use from time to time. Nothing trumps experience. And that's something to always remember. But as far as some of the basics, well, I think that, once you've picked out a boat that fits your needs, you definitely need to get started with a fish finder, either at the steering wheel or if it's a tiller boat, back by the tiller. The sonar or fish finder, chart plotter, all the same thing. And, having that map with a GPS, and it can just be the traditional 2D sonar. If that's what you grew up using and that's your favorite way to fish, that's totally fine. But I think a GPS is really important, especially on some of these bigger waterways, being able to find your way back, whether it's daylight or dark. Some of the mapping that we have that go in these fish finders that allow you to highlight different depths for safety or for efficiency in fishing. I think that Humminbird with their Lake Master chip probably is driving the market when it comes to the GPS side of things with, in my opinion, the best map out there. And again, there's lots of different maps, but Humminbird definitely has a strong market share, at least up in the Fort Peck country.
Yeah, and the other thing is just really nice when you found that favorite spot to be able to go right back to it if you want, or
absolutely
start back at that same spot that you went. So yeah, I agree. Those got to be the main ones. But so now that we've got the basics down, let's get a little deeper into some of the specialty stuff. What do you feel are the main pieces of gear that have advanced most recently that are or will likely become some of the main go-to tech gear? Is most of that gear in the fishing side of things, or are there general type of gear that have made some big advances as well, or what?
Are you talking about tackle or are you talking about electronics? Because there's advances in both of those. All right. Electronics, the big hot topic right now is forward-facing sonar or live sonar. And I think I like to refer to it as more as live sonar, because the forward-facing sonar, you can also use it in down mode. So it's not always just forward-facing. So I just call it live sonar. Whether it's, the Humminbird Mega Live or the Garmin Live Scope or the Lowrance Active Target, they all show you very similar pictures. So I'm just going to call it live sonar. And that is driving the market. Some people like it. Some people don't like it. There's lots of controversy in the fishing industry on whether they should or should not be allowed in certain formats. And it's another tool, and it doesn't trump experience. Just because you get this live information and you can see exactly where your jig is and where that fish is. I think I've learned more about how fish react and move by looking at my live information than I ever have in the past. Does it help me catch more fish? Sometimes, but it can be a huge time sucker just simply looking for that fish, right? Yeah. Versus just going fishing.
Right.
And it doesn't trump that experience part of knowing what to do in certain scenarios from previous history. Nothing ever beats experience, but it's another tool. Live information is another tool that you can surely learn a ton if you just let yourself learn it. And if you've never tried it, if somebody has never tried it because they're 100% against it, I would really challenge them to just go with somebody sometime that has it, regardless if you don't like it or you love it, and just see it firsthand until you really decide that it is bad. It's not the end all of fishing. Forward-facing sonar or live information isn't going to be the end all, because we all started with lake maps. Now everybody had a map of the lake and they could see where these certain rock piles or ridges were. And then side imaging came out, and that allowed you to look on each side of the boat. And then down imaging. They're all just tools that we can use and learn from. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time in the fishing industry with the technology that's changing. But again, it's just another tool in the boat that you can use from time to time, and it can make it more efficient, but it can also, you can waste a ton of time just staring at a graph with your head down, looking at live information. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, you could, some of this gear can turn into, like you say, that time sucker, like a cell phone or whatever. You get to looking at it, and you take all the focus off what you came out for, which was to have fun and go fishing. So
absolutely,
that is something to consider. Well, you had mentioned about more on the mechanical or tackle stuff. So let's get into that.
Okay.
Let's talk a bit about gear that would be kind of both tech and mechanical, like your trolling motors, downriggers, autopilots. I say that since much of that in many ways ties automatically and actually talks to the other tech that we may put into our boat. Now, am I right about that? All this stuff kind of comes together. I mean, your trolling motor, your electric troller is now talking to the other stuff you've got going on in your boat, and the downrigger is kind of talking to it. And
it sure can. If you start with a strong foundation, and I'm going to use Johnson Outdoors as the example, which is Minn Kota, Humminbird, Canon, because they all integrate together if you start with a compatible unit. And when I say unit, a compatible sonar that's a networkable unit. Okay. So we call it the one boat network from Minn Kota or Johnson Outdoors, to where you can control your trolling motor with your fish finder. You can control your downriggers with your fish finder as long as everything is compatible and networked correctly. It is absolutely unbelievable the things that you can do without even getting out of your seat in your boat. Everything from a sound deploy with an Ultera on the bow of your boat, and then you use the Lake Master chip in your Humminbird, and you tell your trolling motor to stay on the 20-foot contour. And then you put it on what's called cruise control, and you tell it to go 1 mile an hour.
Wow.
So now you really have a professional boat driver just driving your boat in 20 feet at 1 mile an hour. Now you got to go back and make sure that the fish are in 20 feet of water.
Sure. Yeah.
Because if the fish aren't in 20 feet, you're going to look like a rock star just driving in 20 feet of water with no fish. So you always want to make sure you start setting these scenarios up where the fish are. You mentioned downriggers. Well, Canon Optima downriggers Bluetooth with your Humminbird because they're all Bluetooth compatible. And I can control my downriggers from my Humminbird, and it'll actually adjust depth based off of what my 2D reading says it is.
No way.
So the example is, if I want to keep my downrigger 10 feet off the bottom, I tell it to do that, and it automatically raises and lowers depending on the depth changes that I drive my boat in.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty technical. And you can tell it to do hunt mode, where it raises at a certain speed and lowers at a certain speed, and how far you want it to raise and lower. Does it make you catch more fish? Sometimes. But you don't want to get frustrated knowing that they'll do these things, but then not knowing how to do it, and then you never try to figure it out. That can be a giant frustration with all of the money that we invest in electronics and all of these goodies. But once you get a few of the finer points dialed in, it is really fun. It really is.
Yeah, because then you're really allowing yourself to be more autonomous. And so now you're really concentrating on the fishing, which is what you came out there for, and not, okay, it's hard to keep this line. I really got to keep an eye on it here because it does change quite a bit if you don't turn this way and that way. Whereas now your boat's going to follow this contour just perfectly. Your downriggers will adjust if they have to. Wow. That is cool.
It's pretty neat. And, you don't use it all the time.
Yeah, no.
But when you do use it and it works and you're more efficient with your time on the water, because we only get so much time out in the water and we all want to be as efficient as possible. And there's a lot of times when I'm playing with a new gadget or function that I don't even fish. I really want to fish, but I have to make myself learn what this does and then how to teach it to others, usually over the phone when they're having an issue and they're in their boat and they call me.
Yeah.
Right. That's really fun for me. Now, do I get it right all the time? Absolutely not. But it makes me learn. And I get a kick. Well, you can ask the captain how many times he's called me with issues in his boat.
Yeah.
Well, he's out on the
there.
lake.
I've been
and
there.
we fix most of them. But it's fun. It's a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This really, to me, I think, marrying some of this, of the mechanical side with the tech side in that, where you're really just getting, and I can see some scenarios. For example, let's say you're going after the big king salmon on Fort Peck.
Yeah.
And you've been on this line and you're seeing them down there, and so far, all right, we've gone through them. They just aren't biting yet. So I want to run that same line, but I'm going to change a few things out. We'll dial it in sooner or later. So now you've got that part just automatic, and now you're concentrating on being a good fisherman, changing stuff out, changing your baits, whatever it is, to see if you can stimulate that bite.
Absolutely. Change of speed, change of direction.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the hunt mode in the Canon downriggers, to where it can just be simply raising that downrigger 10 feet in the water column. There's 3 speeds you can raise them. Raise it at speed 3 to where it kind of pulls away from that fish's face if they're just following it. And then you can say pause for 10 seconds and then lower it back down 10 feet on the slowest level. So where that downrigger, now it's not following the bottom, it's actually hunting. It's called hunt mode in that water column, to where it's a change of speed, but it's a vertical change of speed. It's not a left or right direction change that we would manipulate with the boat. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of times that'll trigger a fish to go. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. Wow, that's interesting. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we really, I don't think, can go much further in this topic without getting into batteries, because the batteries are what power all this. So
absolutely.
I want to talk batteries when we come back right after this. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer are proud authorized dealers of some of the most highly revered brands in the world, like Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has an unparalleled selection of cargo, utility, and dump trailers, and they still have a good selection of Boss snowplows as well. But the gang at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer knows that it takes much more than filling a lot with great inventory to be a company that folks can depend on. That's why they vowed to become the true experts in everything they sell. That's why they set their goals high, and I mean high. They can and will help you before the sale by finding you what you need to get the job that is in front of you done. Whether it is a new CM truck bed for the back of your truck, or the perfect Boss snowplow for the front of it. Or maybe you need the Diamond Sea dump trailer to finally tackle that mess behind the barn you vowed you would get done once the snow cleared. The folks at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer will not only find the perfect equipment to get those and about any other job done, they'll help you with financing, teach you everything you need to know about how to use that equipment, and will continue to be there for you when you need parts or full service. Bottom line is this: Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is your locally owned Boss snowplow, CM truck bed, and Diamond Sea dealer. They offer a wide variety of auto, truck, and trailer accessories and specialize in sales and service of trailers. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is located at 5680 Expressway. That's right in Missoula, Montana. You can also go see them on the web. That's rmtte.com. Sure, they'd love it if you came by, but feel free to find them whichever way you want. Just remember, when something needs to be hauled somewhere, there's no better place to start than Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. That's rmtte.com. Go see him. We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. I'm with Matt Cowen of Mon-Dak Marine. We are talking all about tech today, learning some fascinating stuff. And Matt, you've really got my mind racing on some of this stuff, but we really can't make any of this work without batteries. And when we start getting into, just adding a few more here, a few more there, that can be tricky. Talk about, what are some of the battery, should I say, developments in batteries? Are there better batteries to go with nowadays? How many are too many batteries? How many aren't enough? That sort of thing.
Sure. Well, there's three types of batteries that are most common used in the boating world. One is a wet cell, which is the traditional batteries. The other one is considered an AGM or a gel filled. And we're all fairly familiar with those, but lithium is where the industry is really going. And of course, they are an initial expense that's fairly high right out of the gate, but they last a long time. So I prefer to run lithium batteries in my boat, and it's not because of weight. It's the way that they react. They're full power always until they die. And
okay.
So you're not having to increase. Let's say you've got them on your trolling motor, and it's a 36 volt trolling motor, 3 batteries. And in my case, I run Dakota Lithium, 100 amp hour, 12 volts. I have 3 of them just for my trolling motor. We also do Norsk batteries as well. So I remember when I would be on a mud line facing into the wind at hour 5 or 6, pretty soon now my power went from 4 to 7 to still maintain my current approach. Well, now with these lithiums, it's consistent for hours and hours and hours. I don't feel that draw down, which is really nice. They recharge, maybe a little bit faster than an AGM. They're obviously a lot lighter, so it's really nice to remove them from boats or put them in. You can actually get a single 36 volt battery. So now it's just one battery up there, which is great for space issues. So lithium is definitely where the market is trending. A lithium house battery for delivering clean power to all of your electronics is really important. And then, of course, some guys will use a lithium for a cranking battery if they want. I still prefer to use an AGM for my cranking battery just due to the way that these big motors charge batteries and things like that. So, man, batteries, they're so expensive. And, traditionally, year 3 or 4, you're looking at putting a bunch of money into your boat, changing out batteries. And, if you have 5 batteries in your boat and you change them every 3 or 4 years at, $200-$300 a whack, it gets expensive. But yet expensive. A lithium is really expensive too. But the lifetime of a lithium battery is 2 to 3 times, if not more, what an AGM or a wet cell is. So, there's pros and cons to both.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that they last that much longer. I'll be dang. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Dakota Lithium has 11-year warranty on their batteries. So, they're standing behind them for 11 years. They haven't even been out for 11 years that I've used them. So, boy, I haven't had any issues yet, knock on wood.
Maybe after 11 years, if they change that, we'll have to start thinking a little bit.
There you go.
So let's now get into talking about, if I want tech to make me a better fisherman, and you've brought up so many different really cool, great things and all that, what is a reasonable budget to set for just a good array of fishing tech on my boat?
Well, I think that it starts with the graph that you're going to sit behind and you're going to drive the boat at speed. So, there's lots of different sizes from, let's just say it's a Helix 7 all the way up to a Helix 15. Obviously, the bigger the screen, the more money they cost. But I think it's still really important to understand that there's different models within these units. And I really strongly recommend a unit that has side imaging. That's absolutely hands down my number one tool still to this day is my side imaging.
Okay.
So let's just say, you put a Helix 9 with side imaging on the dash, $1,600. And then you're going to put one in the bow. And let's say you're going to put a Helix 7 mega down imaging in the bow.
Okay.
And then you're going to network everything. So you're looking at another $1,300 to $1,400 on top of that. A trolling motor that's a link compatible trolling motor. And that brings up a whole nother can of worms with the new Minn Kota Quest series. They're expensive. Let's say it's a 36 volt trolling motor and it's a 72-inch Tarova, pretty popular. They're $3,900.
Woo-hoo.
So it doesn't take a long time to get a pile of money already in the boat that was extremely expensive.
Right.
I would absolutely start with a great unit on the dash that's compatible to add all of these things. If we're going to add 360 or any of the live information or Bluetooth with your downriggers, that unit is definitely compatible. So it's pretty smart to think, okay, I can't do this in 1 year. I'm going to put it together maybe over 2 or 3 years. I'm going to save, but I want to make sure everything is compatible. And that's, where I can help out, or there's lots of great guys in Montana that understand the ins and outs of building a system that will allow you to add to it in the future. So to answer that question, it doesn't take a long time to get $5,000 into electronics just to get started.
Whoa. Okay. So that's really what folks need to be looking at right there. At least to get yourself started. Now, if we're thinking ahead, though, that all this can be expandable, that tech should last you for how long before it's just outdated and pooped out?
Oh, man. With the changes in the industry, every year there's something new, right? And I've been there, done that. You put the latest, greatest on your boat, and then next year something new comes out, and you're like, man, I wish I would have waited a year.
Yeah.
I think the answer to that, just from my experience updating customers' equipment, it's 10, 15 years.
Oh, okay. Well,
they still work totally fine. It's just sometimes the advancements are so huge, going from the example could be a unit that doesn't have side imaging to a unit that does have side imaging, that in my opinion, it's 100% worth it to have that technology at my fingertips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and anymore these days, I think a fisherman that, really gets into fishing a lot and loves it, they're getting a new boat before then,
Usually, yeah. Guys turn boats a lot quicker than I ever used to, that's for sure.
So, when you look at it that way, maybe one of the things to really plan on is to say, okay, when I go into, Mon-Dak and say, okay, I want the new, latest, greatest Warrior, let's say, and just include all that into your financing for all the tech gear and all that jazz. So it's just basically, this is what the boat costs now.
Yep.
And do it that way, and just plan on knowing that you're probably going to trade it all in and go again.
Yeah. And some guys, when they get $15,000 invested in electronics and they go get a new boat in 5 years, we transfer electronics a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they haven't been outdated, so to speak. So yeah, there's always that option to keep all of the electronics and just put them on a new rig, or you can start fresh and finance the whole 9 yards. Sometimes it hurts less because you don't think about it as much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As far as the tech, fishing tech or boat tech, doesn't even necessarily have to be fishing. What would you say has made what piece of tech has made the biggest advancement over the last year that you've seen so far?
Well, I think on the boating side, man, it's really, and this might sound a little bit crazy, it's not motor driven. I think that any type of zip wakes or trim tabs, whether they're Bennett's or Lenco's, those are really important. If you've never ridden in a boat that has any sort of trim tabs, that's a game changer.
Yeah, it really is. Yes, it is.
I think that is and that's not a new advancement, so to speak. They've been around.
Sure,
it's just now a lot more what I would consider smaller boats in that 19, 20, 21 foot range. They're coming from the factory with trim tabs. So that the industry sees how much customers like that. And so I really think trim tabs are huge. The motors, of course, boy, every year there's a new advancement in the motors. Sometimes it makes them a little bit more fuel efficient, but they're getting huge. Yeah. You know, the Mercury V10, 400, for example, is just a 7.5 foot giant motor. And I don't know where that'll ever stop.
Yeah. Just until the paint starts to peel off because of the speed.
There you go.
It's going to keep going.
You have to start wearing a helmet.
Yeah. What about on the fishing tech side? What do you think's made the biggest advancement so far?
Well, I would definitely say that the live sonar has changed the industry. Again, that tool in the toolbox, so to speak, when used at the right time, and it can absolutely allow you to catch more fish, but more importantly, you learn so much on how fish react by seeing that video game on your screen, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's definitely changed the way people fish and the way people hunt for big fish, or even species of fish. You can tell. It's pretty neat.
So you're a true believer that you can tell what species of fish you're looking at down there with that, huh?
Well, let's just say if I see a fish and it has a split tail on it, it's not a walleye. It's probably a carp or maybe a big pike. And it's not so much the way the fish appears on the screen. It's where the fish is orientated in the water column or by a piece of structure, whether it's suspended or always on the bottom. We know how fish react and how they like to live in certain areas. Mm-hmm. I think that's more important with the live information. Let's say I'm scanning in front of the boat and I see a rock and I'm in 18 feet of water and there's a fish next to the rock. The first thing that comes to my mind is it's either a walleye or a smallmouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they like to be towards that type of structure. Or it goes from a mud flat to a gravel flat, a substrate change, and I see it on my side imaging, and I see 3 of them together. Chances are pretty good those are walleyes. Mm-hmm. So you learn so much if you just allow yourself to think about that situation and what's going on and how we know that certain species of fish like to gravitate towards certain areas or certain structures, and that's a big thing.
Now, I've heard some rumblings of on the tournament circuit and I think this might just be from people that say don't have that tech of, hey, wait a minute, these guys that have invested all this money in this, they really have a distinct advantage over guys that don't. So to make it fair across the board, we should not allow anyone to use those for fishing tournaments. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question. And I think that we have to go back in history a little bit and think about the advancements that have happened over the last 10 to 15 years and decide if we could lump this forward-facing / live information into that category. Mm-hmm. Remember when we didn't have maps of lakes?
Yeah.
And the maps came out? And now the people that grew up on that lake and knew those spots because they've found them with their sonar, anybody that can read a map can go out and find that structure.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an advancement that wasn't banned, so to speak.
Yep.
And then you got side imaging entered into the ball game. Well, now I can see on each side of my boat. That didn't get outlawed. And all of this costs money.
Right.
But with the forward-facing sonar or live imagery, it is a completely new ball game, being able to see how fish react, see what type they are, watch your jig. I personally don't see that being banned in the tournament world, because you still have to go out there and learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Just because you buy it doesn't mean you're going to go catch fish.
Exactly.
These guys that are catching over 100 pounds on 4-peck in a tournament, don't think that they haven't spent unbelievable amounts of hours sitting behind that, not catching fish. They've spent more time behind it way more than I have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, are they good at it? Absolutely. Do they have the experience of some of the older generations that knew how to look at a tree and an edge of a bank and kind of triangulate the position and know what the wind is blowing, what they would change to? Nothing beats that experience, but boy, it's all about time on the water and just using the tools that are at your fingertips. If you don't like the live imagery, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that you can't compete with the guys that have it, I guess that's up to them.
Yeah, I tend to feel the same way. I mean, the tech is here. It's become part of fishing. It's certainly, like you said, there is a learning curve. Quite frankly, a learning curve that some people just don't ever get because they don't want to spend that time and all that. So, and I have seen plenty of people win a fishing tournament that didn't hardly have any tech on board. So,
I agree.
To me, I think it's just advancements like anything else. They used to run the Olympics with no shoes, and now we use shoes.
Exactly.
It just goes from there.
And it's not going to stop. There's going to be something new in the next 5 years that is going to be the next hot topic. But I don't want the fishing industry in the tournament side specifically to get a bad rap just because they're allowing people that want to use the latest, greatest technology to benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of guys that have forward facing sonar that just don't catch more fish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go fish a tournament, because, it'd be like me saying, I'm not going to go play basketball. I'm only 6'4" and that guy's 7'5". I'm not going to go play because there's no chance I can win.
Mm-hmm.
Figure it out. There is a way. Use your experience. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about as far as stuff down the future that maybe is not there yet, but you've heard some rumblings about it? Any kind of Star Trek-y stuff that we should be aware of that might be coming?
There are a few things out there with some of the manufacturers that I've looked at and played with a little bit, and I really can't say a ton about that. Is it earth-shattering? No. It's just advancements of some of the current technology that we have to make it a little bit better, clearer, cleaner. And a lot of it comes down to, is it easier to use? Because the more techy it gets, a lot of times people feel like it just gets harder to use. And that stigmatism is going away, because a lot of these are just plug and play systems that look fantastic right out of the box. You don't have to do an unbelievable amount of changes in your settings to make them work efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
all right. Well, we're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk a bit about learning this tech and kind of get a feel for how long that takes, and then also have you talk about, because that's a whole nother service that Mon-Dak provides is actually on the water training. So I want you to talk about that when we come back right after this. I want to talk a bit about a very special company located in western Montana, Superior Hardwoods of Montana. They were established in 1977, and since that time, guiding customers through the woods has been their passion throughout their history. The main focus at Superior Hardwoods of Montana has been to provide the finest wide plank flooring and unique building materials available anywhere. One of the things I noticed right away about the owner of Superior Hardwoods of Montana, John Medliger, and his son Corey, and the rest of the staff there is they're very proud to offer the largest selection of in-stock flooring in the western United States. See, for over 40 years, they've been known for leading the industry in reclaimed and antique building materials, and the success that followed has allowed them to, now get this, stock over 11 acres of stunning architectural lumber that awaits the perfect addition to your home. One thing I want you to remember is just because they're located in Missoula, Montana, that does not mean they can't help you turn your home into a piece of historical art if you live somewhere else. They have been guiding folks from as far away as Hawaii and beyond through the woods for many years. So no matter if your project is located across the street from them, across the state, or somewhere else in the world, they can't wait to turn your house into a dream home. Their goal is simple. They stand ready to deliver the best choices with reliability and honesty, helping at any phase of a project with inspirational advice. And I'm not exaggerating when I say they actually treat their customers as friends and family. So the choice is yours. But if I were you, I would go to superior-hardwoods.com. superior-hardwoods.com. Of course, you're more than welcome to call them, 406-235-7452, or, they'd love you to visit 5120 Highway 93, just south of Missoula, Montana. They can't wait to guide you through the woods at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Go see them. You're going to love what they do to your home. We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. I'm with Matt Cowen of Mon-Dak Marine. Boy, we've been learning lots about tech. It is just amazing, some of the cool stuff that's out there. We're going to get into here shortly on learning all the tech and all that, but I did want to sneak one more question in. Do you feel, Matt, there's going to be a point where we're just going to get in our boat and say, start where we left off yesterday evening fishing for salmon, and it's just going to take us out of Fort Peck Marina and go and find right where we went?
Yeah, that Starship autopilot style, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I mean, there's some technology out there that the boat will go in certain areas or directions for you, but I don't see that happening on inland freshwater, just for the simple safety factor of I don't want my boat driving for me in case there's another boat in front of me, or what if I want to look at that point on the way by? I don't think that's going to happen on the ocean. Yeah, it happens all the time. They just set them and go. So we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. So the captain, if he's listening, no, you're not going to be able to set it where you can just take a nap and it's going to handle it for you.
Yeah, you got to drive it, Captain.
I'll never forget. He said, "I'm going to take a little nap, so you keep a watch here, rigger." I said, "Oh yeah, no problem." And sure enough, I fell asleep too.
Oh no! Oh, you guys are sleeping behind the wheel. Oh man!
We woke up just before we were going to hit the dam there, but
oh geez, you guys kill me.
So I got a pretty bad lecture for that one, but
No, I suppose. Yeah, somebody's got to stay awake.
he looked so peaceful there. Just
Yeah, I didn't want to wake him up.
so let's talk about training and how we learn all this stuff. What is the learning curve like? I mean, is this stuff? Can anyone learn this? Is it a weeks and weeks of learning? Kind of give us a feel.
No, anybody can learn this. And I think going into it with the right mindset that you're probably going to get frustrated that's fine. But how you deal with that frustration is the key. You know, if you continue to push yourself to learn, and time on the water for sure is hands down the best. And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you just have to leave your fish and stuff in the truck and just go out in your boat and just make yourself learn and go through some scenarios. And I know we've talked about some of the on the water training that I do at Fort Peck, or sometimes I'll go to a different lake or reservoir and meet a customer. We go in their boat. Sometimes I've installed the equipment in their boat, or sometimes it's already in their boat and they just want to become more efficient and learn what it can do for them. And they always are nervous. Customers are nervous. Well, can I bring my fishing partner with me? Or can I bring my husband or wife with me? Or can I bring two of my buddies with me? Absolutely. And then we get out there and it's an amazing conversation. I always started out with, well, what is your number one frustration that you don't understand in your boat? Because maybe I wanted to teach them about live sonar and they wanted to learn about how to manipulate a lake master chip.
Okay.
So that's the fun part. And then I say, well, they're like, oh, how am I going to remember all this? They can video it with their phone if they want. They push the buttons, and usually about 2 or 3 hours in, everybody's brain is full of information and they're kind of numb, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, meaning we went through a lot of fun stuff. Now they're not going to remember it all, but they have a reference to go back, whether it's to talk to their fishing partner about what they went through in the boat with me, or they watch a video, or they go out in the boat on their own and they try to do it and they can't figure it out. So they call me and I walk them through the steps on the phone. Or if they don't have any of this stuff in their boat and they're thinking about purchasing it, we jump in one of my boats and we go out. They drive my boat. We push the buttons. They get to, experience all of it.
Oh,
as
great
long as
idea.
it's,
Yeah.
not only just whatever manufacturer boat that we have, but then all of the different electronics. It's fun. I've done multiple training sessions with customers 3, 4, 5, 6 times over the span of a few years. And it's kind of like you're going to college. Start with the 101, then you're heading up to the 201s, and up pretty soon you're at the 401s. And I learned just as much about teaching it with the customers in their boat and how I can become more efficient and answering correct questions correctly. But I just get so excited when I get the opportunity to get in a customer's boat or my boat and go with them. And we just push buttons and look at different pieces of structure. And yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. Well, and see there's where I think a huge problem exists with all this tech, and it's kind of the so-and-so's got it, so now I got to have it, and so you get it, and I don't know how many people's boats I've been on, and they really don't know how to work their tech. It's there, they can turn it on, they can get it to do a few things, and you really want to get it to a point that it be like you had started this podcast earlier with, that it's a tool. It's just another tool. And if you know how to work that tool and are confident to work that tool, boy, they can be fantastic. So to me, that's just worth the investment right there. You spend all this money on all this great tech, learn how to work it, spend the time that you need to learn how to work it. And I would assume that as time goes on, and you're ready to get a new piece of gear, that new piece of gear is probably easier to understand than it would have been from the beginning.
Yeah, and some of that is just self-driven, with all of the social media platforms that we have, being able to research whatever you're looking at. Side imaging on YouTube, you can look at 50 different videos and have it explained to you different every time. And maybe you take a piece from every one of those videos and you learn about it, but you still got to go out and apply it to your situation in your boat. You have to make yourself do it.
Right.
It's never comfortable to get out in a boat and have a new piece of equipment that you don't know how to use and you get frustrated. So pretty soon you just go back to the same way that you always fished and you just look at 2D sonar and away you go. And that's okay. That's just fishing and that's a great time on the water. But there's a lot of different things that these units will do that can make you more efficient with your time on the water. Like just make sure you're always fishing where there are fish. That's a big deal. But that's the goal.
Yeah. It really gets to that point. And if you approach the tech right, like you were saying, that it's not the answer to all questions, the end all be all, but if you approach it as, hey, that tool would probably help in this situation. And if you get into it like that and then understand it, know how to work it, in my opinion, I have watched people that they've just blossomed as fishermen. They just have enjoyed fishing more because when they go out, now they're catching more fish. They're finding the fish that they're looking for. So it's a great world out there. This tech stuff is great as long as you just don't let it get you too freaked out or that.
Yeah, don't get overwhelmed. That's the key.
So if somebody wants to and I'll put all this in our links down in the podcast description, Matt, so that people can click. But if somebody wants to book some time on the water with you to have you help them with their tech, do they just give you a call or is there a place online that they register? What's the best way to do that?
The easiest way is to call me at Mon-Dak, 406-228-2900, or you can call me on my personal cell phone, 406-670-2645. You can shoot me a text, you can call me, whatever's easiest. And, obviously I'm fortunate enough to live at Fort Peck, and that would be the ideal position to go do it. But if you're at Canyon Ferry and I've got to go work on a boat in Bozeman, for example, we can schedule, a few hours on an evening and go out and push buttons.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, get out there and do it, folks. And as far as when you want to get all this new tech into their boat, is most of it, do you have a lot of it in stock, or is it a longer wait to get a lot of this stuff yet?
Nope. I have everything in stock. Everything from Lowrance Humminbird Garmin. We've got it all. And the wait times or the lead times have come down to what I would consider normal again.
Oh, okay.
So we're doing well there. So it's available if we need to special order something and or go that route. But yeah, don't get frustrated on this electronic stuff. And if you don't have it in your boat and you just want to go see how it works, man, if you need an excuse to come to Fort Peck, we can go out and drive around and push buttons in one of my boats.
Heck yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun. Well, Matt, I want to thank you again for enlightening us on all this great stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
The world of tech is really growing a lot. All right, sir. Well, we'll be in touch soon. And thanks again for coming on, Matt.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And for those of you that have listened to this podcast and said, yeah, I think I need to pull the trigger on this. Let's get some of this stuff. At the bottom of the podcast description, I'm going to have the links right there. You'll be able to just go down, click, boom, you're right there to Mon-Dak. Matt will be there to help you, and you can get started in the wonderful world of tech. You will not regret it. I guarantee you will not regret it. All right, folks, until we meet again, be safe out there, have fun, and we'll see you next time on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.